my talk today is An Ocean in My Heart, a story of a million heartbeats. Maybe again, because it played for too short. Yeah. Okay. Any guesses what comes to your mind when you first heard that audio?
Heartbeats.
Yes, that was my heart and it was failing. On the 1st of January 2022, I was recuperating from a bout of viral fever, and my father walked into the room wanting to wish me a very happy new year, only to find me not so happy. He quickly grabbed the stethoscope and placed it on my chest, and that is when I saw his face lose color. He still tells me that it was the loudest murmur he had ever heard in his entire life. And then he quickly rushed me into the hospital, and an echo scan was performed on me. The cardiologist sat in front of me and said, "Beta, your heart is too big, and we need to perform a surgery to reduce the thickness and remove the obstruction from inside your heart." And in a moment of shock, my ears actually went deaf, and I had my own questions for him. The first question was, will I win club? Now, before you guys have some sort of assumptions about this, at that time, I was working for the #1 networking site in the world, and the President's Club is a coveted award given to the top 1% of high performers. And that is all I ever wanted. And the next question I had was the condition that my heart was in. Did I have anything to do with it? Was it my fault? Because the last thing I wanted was to walk out of this room and for my mother to tell me that I told you so. Do you see a problem? These are my pictures from my early childhood and my early 20s. That is me with my first book. That is me performing poetry and sitar. That's me minutes before I jumped off from the Rohtang Valley, even after my mother told me a million times not to do so. But that was me. Do you see a problem? I was diagnosed with hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy plus mitral regurgitation. In layman terms, my heart was so big. The muscles had thickened that they had begun to create an obstruction for the flow of blood inside my heart. And until this point, I had no idea what congenital heart diseases are, or CHDs are. Globally, 60 to 70% of the population is completely unaware of what congenital heart diseases are. We all know cancer, diabetes, hypertension, but almost very few people know that congenital heart diseases are the #1 birth defect. And in India, the awareness is even lower, with 75 to 80% of people not knowing what congenital heart diseases are. And you must have heard so many screaming headlines about cardiac deaths in the country and around the world. Very recently, a class 6 boy collapsed while he was giving his exam because of a cardiac arrest. Very recently, there was a class 8-year-old girl who collapsed during her school assembly because of a cardiac arrest. In the US, there has been a recent study where newborn children with congenital heart conditions, the percentage has gone up to 16% after the first year of the global COVID pandemic. Now, you may tell me, what does the stat for India look like, right? So the CHDs in India are basically at 2 to 2.5 lakh babies born with congenital heart diseases, which are almost up to 8 to 9 out of 1,000 live births. Now, out of that, 25% of them need urgent intervention. India actually carries the highest burden globally when it comes to congenital heart diseases because of its rising population. And 10% of the infant deaths that happen in India are because of CHDs, and 90% of this can be prevented with early detection. Now, you may tell me that, Rashmi, newborn children and infants are usually under the care of doctors, and this shouldn't be such big of a problem. But a casual health checkup does not always show you that a child has a congenital heart condition. So why are the numbers so staggeringly low? 5 to 6% of children living with CHDs, this is the only percentage of children in the country who have access to advanced heart care. And there is so much of disparity geographically and economically. There's an uneven distribution of cardiac centers across the country. And malnutrition is actually very prevalent with children living with CHDs. And that is why it becomes so much more difficult for surgical intervention and further prognosis. And let me tell you, the symptoms are so lifelike. I used to have shortness of breath when I used to walk a certain distance or climb a flight of stairs. I would never put on weight. Within 5 days of diagnosis, I had to undergo an open heart surgery. I had no time to process what had happened. My family was crushed. My close friends and family visited me in the hospital to see me in the devastated state that I was in. And I don't know how many Game of Thrones fans here, but I really, truly looked in the eye of death and said, not today. And guys, I won my life back. And guess what? I also won President's Club. Yes. But I was left with so much of pain and trauma. I was looking for answers everywhere. I had so many questions about death, why I was exposed to it, and how I escaped it. And thus actually began my journey of asking questions. The first question I wanted an answer for was, why me? And during this journey, I'm sure all of you have asked this question to yourself. What is life all about? What is the purpose of life? And thus began my spiritual journey. After feeling like slipping away from the edges of life and then being pulled back as if the universe wasn't done with me, my mind was propelled onto a journey to find its purpose. I climbed the Parthenon with a heaviness I couldn't name. I watched the Mediterranean Sea into eternity endlessly. I stood before the Colosseum, trying to hear the stories of ghosts of empires talk about rise and ruin. I laid a chadar at the Dargah Sharif, letting my prayers dissolve into incense and surrender. I sank in the burning sands of Jaisalmer, letting the desert strip me of everything I thought I was. Across continents and faiths, I searched not for God, but for pieces that I had lost all along the way. But where better than, or rather, who better than the creator of this universe to answer questions about death? I reached the doors of Pushkar, the home for the only Brahma temple in the world, which has the Aravalis, the magnanimous Aravalis, where it surrounds a little lake, actually. I don't know if you guys have been to Pushkar, it's absolutely beautiful. It is believed that there were 33 lakh gods that assembled around this little lake. And even here, I did not find my answer. When I think about it, the answer was actually in front of me all along. If my father had not heard the murmur, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today. I have watched my father serve this nation in so many, many different ways. As an army man, as a doctor, as an educator. He actually ushered in a mini revolution that saved the lives of thousands of pregnant women and young children through an innovative method of community baby showers. He has worked with children living with HIV and conducted so many cancer screening camps. I grew up watching my father make a difference. And when I participated in some of his camps, I could see the love and the care that he had for his country and its countrymen. And that is when I believe I had found my idea. I wanted to create a system that allows communities, that allows people from economically backward spaces to have access to advanced heart care. And the goal was to detect as many congenital heart conditions in children across the population of the country. So first, we thought that maybe we should send doctors with stethoscopes, to detect murmurs. But as I told you, that an echocardiogram scan is the best way to do so. So we dropped the idea. The next one was we spoke to numerous vendors trying to understand if we could find a device that could do just more than murmurs, right? We wanted to see all kinds of congenital heart conditions. And this is something that I have seen across all the talks today, right? The moment you decide to do something good, every obstacle rises like it was waiting for you, not to stop you, but to really test how deeply you mean it. I had so many challenges that I had to grapple with. The first one being every echocardiogram scan costed more than 1,500 rupees. And I wanted to scan thousands and thousands of children. How are we going to do it? The strict PCP-NDT Act in the country does not allow you to take echocardiogram scan machines from school to school. That was the second challenge. The third challenge being, while we were finding it really hard to secure permissions from the government to take government school children to screening centers, we were stuck in all of that. Now, with a lot of trial and error, we finally found a way to make it work. We signed an MOU with a heart hospital. We decided a set number of children would go on a set number of days and get their free echocardiogram scan done, and we would pay that hospital. And then, while we put forth a complete, foolproof proposal to the government, we found our initial beneficiaries with community schools and NGOs. Everything was ready. We were ready to launch our program. The scan machines, the beneficiaries, the goodie bags, the doctors, absolutely everybody ready to kickstart. Let me remind you that this is 12 months of hard work, and then this happened. I was stuck in the lift with 26 children in the same hospital that we had decided to launch our screening program in for 45 minutes. The only functional device was my phone. The only light we had inside that lift was from my phone. Now, I don't know how many of you have been in a confined space with no way out. You truly know where your heart lives. In a moment of silence, I could hear the heartbeats of these 26 children. It was so loud that I could feel their heartbeats looking at me. They were looking at me with hope, as an anchor, as someone who could take them out of this misery. While there were hundreds of people outside trying to break open this door, I thought to myself that, you know what, if I come out of this, I will not stop. My purpose became so much more clearer and louder to me. And guys, we launched our screening programs. And since the time of launch, we have scanned close to 2,000 children through the most effective way, which is the echocardiogram scans, and we've detected over 50 cases of congenital heart conditions. And in India, the data of 2020 shows that there were 10 to 12 out of 1,000 children. And through our live study, we're seeing over 25 for every 1,000 children. So, are we going to change the demographics of heart diseases? Yes. Through our live study, we are going to show the current scenario of heart diseases in our country. And we aim to build free screening centers across the country to create accessibility. Thousands and thousands of children will receive heart care. And this is my purpose, and I will not stop. You may have heard right to education, right against child labor. Today, I want to propose that it is the right of every child to know that they have a healthy heart. Now, before I end my talk, I wanted to say a few lines from my next book, as I'm also a poet, so I'm going to do that now. It is a curse to be loved, for whom you are forced to become an anchor, a rock, a quiet savior. I draw strength from this boundless curse called love. Its strength so untamed to carry all this weight. Why does this ocean have to kneel before the shore? Let me show you the depths I hide. Open the sky, show me the light. My tides will break the shore because this heart cannot hold it anymore. My tides were rising, my storms were roaring. I stand at the edge with the ocean in my heart. Thank you.